Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of the Make a Difference podcast. We're so happy that you're here with us today. We have Nathan here with us from Vindeket Foods, and we're so excited to hear from him about all the amazing things that he's doing in our community. So welcome, Nathan. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. To jump off here, if you could just give us a little bit of a history about Vindeket Foods, how it started, what you guys do, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we want all the details.
Yeah. All the details.
So we started a little over 3 years ago now, and back in June of 2017 was our first day of picking up food. We started with 3 stores, and that's the first day we were kind of open to the public. But it all really started, if you've heard of Vindeket, a lot of people know the illustrious beginnings, or dirty beginnings, I guess you could say. I was, living a little bit different style of life than most people, dumpster diving, as they call it. And basically just started to see the sheer amount of waste out there, and really felt pretty moved to want to do something about it, and started kind of researching and presenting some of my ideas to some local nonprofits. And local nonprofit here in Fort Collins, a faith-based nonprofit, Serve 6.8, loved the idea and was able to host me in my idea, and was able to have that backing of an umbrella organization, a 501c3, so we could have the legitimacy of contacting stores from the front and working with them to not throw away that food. So I identified, some partnerships with local stores, with our local food bank, and working with everyone to pick up food that was not already being rescued by other organizations in the area. So namely on weekends, holidays, smaller stores that weren't being serviced every day, and really just trying to all work together here in the community to tighten up these kind of gaps in the food waste cycle. And so we pretty quickly, grew from our initial 3 Sprouts that we were working with. Sprouts, has a commitment to the community. And they actually, wanted to, they had these gaps in services that it kind of perfect storm worked with my dream and the local food bank and Serve 6.8 that we were able to kind of pick up the slack. And, we started delivering some stuff to our local hospital, and pretty quickly garnered up like Whole Foods and a few other stores like Trader Joe's and some of our other local grocery stores, restaurants. I have probably 12 pretty consistent donors that donate stuff that they wouldn't otherwise be able to sell, or it's too blemished or bruised produce or overstock, or maybe a sale ran out, or expiry dates. There's a whole multitude of reasons why places can't or won't sell things. And because we're a nonprofit, we get to be protected by the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act, which protects donors when they donate food that's safe and fit for consumption in good faith. They're protected from liability, and there hasn't been any lawsuits or federal lawsuits against companies in the case if someone gets sick, which doesn't happen. I mean, most people, when you get a box of salad greens and you forget about it in the back of your fridge and it turns to rot, you're not going to eat that. People are pretty,
I would hope not.
Yeah, pretty wise about that kind of stuff. But with that being said, there's so many great things out there that maybe are a little bit expired, or, like I said, your apple has a little bruise on it, or you buy a big tub of greens and there's a little bit of greens that you need to spend a little extra time to pick out. And that's kind of where we thrive. And in that margin is insane. I mean, there's, they say back in 2010, there was a report. They said 40% of all food produced in the United States is thrown away. And they also say about 30% of all food in the world is tossed. And so, as you can imagine, that equates to, quite a lot of other statistics, such as,
Yeah, for sure.
Per capita, that's like $1,500 for a family of four. That's equated to that. They say 133 billion pounds of food is wasted per year, and that's about 1,200 calories per person per day is thrown
That's
away.
crazy.
Yeah.
That statistic is staggering.
And that also, again, these are all kind of done by like the Pingree House, USDA kind of, and EPA kind of came out with lots of different stats, and they're always changing and stuff. But they're saying 161 billion dollars that's equating to that much per year. So I mean, it's ridiculous, like the amount of waste at the farmer's field, at the grocery store, restaurant, in your own kitchen, in the back of your fridge. It's pretty nuts. But there are a lot of organizations out there that are doing what they can, including mine. Our local food bank here in Larimer County is much larger than me. Our organization has rescued over the past 3 years about 1 million pounds of food, which is pretty cool. But I would imagine, I think with Larimer County, that we're 3-4 times that in the same amount of time. So there are a lot of great organizations who are doing what they can to rescue this food and getting it into the hands of people. Vindeket, my organization, we are open to everyone. Anyone is able to come in. So how it looks like is we go out to the community, we pick up all this food, we do the reclamation part, then we bring it back to our little warehouse, we organize it, we go through it, make sure it's presentable and it's okay for people to come. Then twice a week we're open for like the second chance marketplace, where anyone's able to come in and shop for themselves. Obviously during COVID, during the peak quarantine time, we changed to a drive-up service. People would come through the line, have a prepaid or pre-made box options that they could kind of choose from, and we put it in their car. It was really cool. So we still have that available. But there's a lot of fun and a lot of dignity that happens when you're able to kind of shop for this food, consume this food that was otherwise wasted, and really be a part of the solution to this food waste issue. And then obviously folks who maybe are having a tough time financially or kind of down and out a little bit, really have a really beautiful experience getting to shop for themselves. We are all community sustained. We really love that grassroots community driven project. So we don't really have any big funders. The people that we serve take care of us too. And so when we're all growing together, we're all doing what we can to fight this food waste issue, as well as taking care of our community. And so you'll see a little bit of anybody there. We're all volunteer run except for me. I'm the only staff. And so every day of the week, volunteers are out there picking up food and sorting it and getting it ready for our 2 market days. We're hoping to expand to a 3rd market day if we can get a few more reclamation partners. So if you know anybody who owns a bakery or a restaurant or grocery store, or someone who works there and says, hey, where do you guys donate to the food bank? Do you donate to Vindeket? And no load is too small for us. We have friends around town on their bikes, personal vehicles, picking up a box of food as small as a few cans, as much to some of our donors. Fortunately, unfortunately, it's kind of it's a little bittersweet. We're super thankful that they donate to us. It is a bummer. I mean, it's just kind of the nature of the beast in food industry. Sometimes, the farmer grows too much, or the trucker ships too much, or people don't buy enough. And so the stores are doing the best that they can to have the supply for the people. But with that, sometimes one of our pickups could be 1,500 pounds of food from a single store. Sometimes it's 50 pounds, it's just always different. And it's kind of the wild, wild west, you just never know. It's like you're riding a bucking bronco, and one day you pick up 8 different loads from around town that you weren't planning on, and you end up with 10,000 pounds, So just to put some number, I know I've thrown out a lot of numbers.
So 1 second though. 1 second, Nathan.
What?
1 second. I just want to interrupt. So Wild Wild West of food, right? You were dumpster diving at the genesis of this. So I'm just curious, like how do you even get to dumpster? Why were you dumpster diving? If you can't share, can you share that, or is that a story that you can share, or like?
I've always kind of been a guy who is trying to. I'm pretty observant, and like back in the day, me and my pops used to like buy old surfboard. I grew up in South Texas and on the coast. We used to go to pawn shops or Craigslist or whatever, garage sales, buy old surfboards, fix them up, resell them. So I've always had a keen eye for like what other people maybe don't care about, or it doesn't make economical sense, or it's too small potatoes, or I'm always the guy who's like driving down the street and I'm like, oh, you see that pile of wood on this side of the road that someone's getting rid of? Like, what could we do with that? And so having an eye for that, and then realizing like how unfortunate it is, the United States and the world for that matter, we have this kind of a throwaway mentality, or throw it in the landfill, cover it up, forget about it. It's just, it's a little laziness. It's a little selfishness. It's
a little
bit not caring about the people who come after you,
Right.
Which is, unfortunate. And that's kind of what I like to fight is wasted time, wasted people's effort. So when we're rescuing this food, I mean, we're not only saving the food itself or the animal that maybe potentially died in vain, or the crop that was grown and not harvested, but we're saving, the people who work the land and their time, their blood, sweat, and tears. We don't know all their story. We're saving the truckers' time, the diesel fuel, the water, all the hydrocarbons that went into making this food, the land itself, the fertilizers, the minerals. There's a lot of, food waste is like, I forget if it's like a third or it's a pretty good percentage of what's in like landfills. But that affects, methane and greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, the amount of diesel fuel and water that takes to grow. I mean, there's some crazy statistic out there that we grow like 150% of the food we actually need, or something. Like, we're wasting time and money and energy and land to grow all this food that we're just tossing because we want to have the shelves looking bountiful. We want to have, an overabundance of what we need. When you go to the grocery store in Thanksgiving and Christmas time, like they're going to stock the shelves. That's actually when we receive a lot of our food, because, you don't want to have this image of not having enough. We're constantly operating out of this scarcity mindset. And so we're trying to, when people come and say, hey, like, do you guys have eggs? I was like, we don't have eggs this week, but you know what? We're probably gonna have eggs next week. Like, it's this funny concept of not always getting what you want or something like that.
Well, that's so interesting, because
you're gonna be all right.
This brings up a few different points, and then we're going to get into the environment thing, because I think that that's really important. But I think you're talking about how people there, I think especially in not just the United States of America, obviously, but in any first world country, I think that we have an ideal of we have a security in knowing that when we go to the store, we're going to be able to get whatever we want, whenever we want. Like, oh, you don't have eggs this week, instead of just being like, oh, I'll just have something else this week. Of course, what are we going to do? We're going to go to another store to buy eggs, right? Because the other store will have eggs. But COVID, I think when we started to see the panic buying happening and nobody could get their hands on toilet paper, Clorox wipes, paper towels, eggs were, meat, beef. People were buying beef like there was not a cow in this country anymore. I mean, and so we actually witnessed this happen for the first time in our lifetime. The three of us, we witnessed food shortage. And it wasn't because there was actually a shortage. It was because people were mass buying in a panic. That's what was happening. And so I just think it's really interesting, because we got to experience what that is like, to actually go into a store and for them not to have what you were looking for. and panic ensued. And of course, now we're back into where stock levels are normal and for the most part, and that's great. But so I want you brought up the environment, greenhouse gases a few times in what you were just talking about, and how, I'm not an expert in this, but I've always been very fascinated in how food waste specifically impacts our environment. And so if you could talk a little bit about that and what you know about that and how all of this wastefulness, what it's doing to our environment, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, you could do a pretty simple kind of Google search, and there's a lot of different agencies, like the National Resource Defense Council, USDA, like the, I forget which politician Pingree was, but there's been a lot of research done, funding, like trying to figure out like what's happening. And so like I pulled up a few simple stats for like, food waste in the US accounts for, a fourth of all freshwater consumption. It equates to, and these are usually per annual statistics, but consumption of like 300 million barrels of oil a year, like that's all stuff that's just being wasted because it's not being, utilized. The amount of waste in the US, like if you look at landfills and stuff, I think they're saying, like 25% is associated with food. Looking at where it's done, consumer versus production versus distribution level, like 60% of the waste is done by consumers themselves. So that's like, at the houses and restaurants and stuff like that. It's crazy even to think about like plastics and packaging and stuff that goes into. Here's another one. Sorry, on Pingree's, on the government website, pingree.house.gov is saying, 20% of landfill weight is municipal waste from food. I'm not sure what the greenhouse gas, what that specific statistic is, but it's methane by decomposing food is pretty substantial. And a lot of times in landfills, it's like an anaerobic environment. And so it's not broken. It's not decomposing the way it should be if we were separating for compost. Luckily, a lot of, municipalities and cities are, it is important to do composting, or it's maybe even required in some instances. The bummer with that though, is that and I know a lot of people like, I know in France, it's like illegal to throw away food. Technically, I'm not sure how they enforce that, but it'd be really cool to see a lot of that food going to people or going to animals before we just even compost it. But
right.
At least it's being composted. But yeah, I could send over some fun infographics I found that, have been really helpful, like that we have on our website, or that, is showing people like that one I was telling you guys about. 133 billion pounds of food is wasted per year, like is in the US alone, 133 billion, like that should blow anyone's mind. Like maybe a lot of that is restaurant waste when they're prepping food, but still like it's pretty insane to think about. Like, we all know, we go shopping to the grocery store, you have that half, eaten bunch of Italian parsley that you had for the specific recipe, and then the rest of it goes bad because you only made it for one recipe. Well,
right.
How about testing your creativity in the kitchen and maybe buying what's on sale, or buying only what you need, or trying to actually utilize all the ingredients for other recipes, and you doing some fusions. Classic recipes don't have to use specific things. Say you have a cucumber, but you needed a tomatillo, I don't know, whatever. Like maybe just have a little fun, get a little creative. You might find some cool stuff. And personally, I'm not the best. I'm not here offering all the solutions. Sure, I forget about some things sometimes too. We are human, but I think as we develop as a species, and as we work out all the kinks in our infrastructures, hopefully we're going to be seeing some of these numbers go down, which I think we have. Like I said, a lot of these numbers were released in 10 years ago when this big push was made. And since then, I know there's a lot of organizations like mine that are really concentrating on kind of closing these gaps and educating, a lot of advocacy. I know City of Fort Collins has a Save the Food campaign that's part of a national campaign. We have some links on our website to reading date labels and what you can do for food. We do some little seminars and little educational things sometimes that give people more historical ideas on how to preserve things or how to process things or how to make different things with unusual ingredients. And so, hopefully we can do all our part. Something I did, well, before, did you guys want to ask me anything about more like kind of environmental type of things? I kind of blast you guys with a lot of stuff. So you may want to chop and cut some of the nonsense that I'm not the most clear. Sometimes I just throw to keep going. So
No, it's all really great
you're
info
forming
though.
the thought as you're saying it.
Yeah.
For sure.
I did want to talk a little bit about, kind of how our market works, which is really fun. I know I said that, our people who shop with us help support us. It's a really, again, Vindeket is not, nothing's for sale. You don't have to pay for anything. It's a no-cost grocer with the opportunity to really be a part of what we're doing. So there's no difference between the shopper and the volunteer or a potential donor or someone who's being serviced or taken care of by Vindeket. So everybody has an opportunity if they would like to. It's again not required. They can make a donation financially. They can volunteer their time. So that everyone really feels like a bit of ownership at Vindeket, that we are for you and you are for us. And I tell a lot of people, what can you do for Vindeket? It's not always about what Vindeket can do for you. So when people are maybe having a tough time and they only have a few extra dollars and they say like, I'm going to put a few of my extra dollars to support Vindeket so they can keep growing, so I can come week after week. And there's always going to be enough because, we're fighting food waste. We're going to rescue this food. We're going to do that till we die. That's what we do. That's our mission. But people have it's kind of a really beautiful process when they get to say like, well, I'm a part of it too. And I donate to keep them open. And I know that week after week that there's always going to be enough. And some weeks we have, we rescue 12, 15, 20,000 pounds of food. Some weeks we rescue 3,000. So, I mean, on average, we're rescuing about 8,000 pounds of food a week. So we're seeing, a day that we're open at the market. Right now, we're still working out some kinks with some collecting of data, but, we usually ask people, how many people are you feeding with this food? And so per day that we're open, that number will usually be, somewhere in the 300s. I think last week or last Wednesday when we were open, it was, 323. So that's how many mouths were fed with that food. And then we support a ton of nonprofits in our community, Catholic Charities, the Growing Project, Foco Cafe, Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, Serve 6A, other churches. So this food is here, and we are happy to share anything that we have. There's always really enough, but we're excited to even rescue more and keep providing for more and more people. It's a really kind of a holistic lifestyle that we're trying to promote, this conscious community of we care about each other, we care about the land, we care about animals, we care about the environment. How can we beautify our community even in more every day?
Yeah.
Love that.
Question. So I have a couple questions. First question is, where does Vindeket come from?
Yeah, so it's a combo word. We made it up of vindication and advocate. So we are advocates of vindication, making a wrong right. Yeah.
Very cool.
Gotcha. Now, from your standpoint, leading this operation, you're a pretty young guy, so what do you think in terms of, maybe just our perspective towards food? Do you see anything that maybe when people come around Vindeket that they start realizing, oh, this food isn't different from the food that I buy at a store, or maybe just mindset shifts that are taking place when people interact with what you're doing? Or, can you speak to that a little bit? Just what you see in terms of, yeah, just like, I mean, how old are you?
I know I probably appear to you maybe younger, but I'm 32, so I'm getting up there. Up there.
Okay, so
You probably thought I was 27 or something, Darius.
I did actually. I did.
Most people do. I get that. So thank you.
Yeah. So
yeah,
so
it's
being a millennial, so you're a millennial.
yeah.
Maybe do you see anything just in our contemporaries in terms of how we view food and ways that Vindeket is actively helping to maybe shift that a bit?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a movement where people are starting to care a little bit more about little things. And again, I don't want to make the stores like out to be the bad guys. I mean, they're doing the best they can and presenting good quality food for people. And then with that, unfortunately, there is just inevitable waste. And so we're happy that our stores want to donate and care about their local community. They're very supportive of the work that we do. And we're also helping them, reduce waste and saving on dumpster fees and able to issue tax deductions. So there's a lot of great incentives, but it's really cool that they care enough to set that stuff aside for us, or that they want to donate as much as they can. And yeah, I think there is kind of a movement with people who maybe they think it's sexy or something. I know there's some ugly fruit campaigns and eat your vegetables, and there's double fingered carrots and all that. People are doing some fun stuff. There's chefs that have documentaries and chefs that have came out with some really cool stuff. This is all wasted food. We're actually going to be doing a dinner that anyone's welcome to. It's kind of a pay what you can.
Yeah.
We're going to have 4 different chefs from our local community cooking up some of this amazing rescue food using some local produce, just showing off what you can do. And so there's a lot of movement behind that. I think with I think Anthony Bourdain and the late Anthony Bourdain came out with that wasted documentary, and there's some advocacy groups and people cooking food for the nations and cooking food with a lot of this waste across the world. And I forget what your question. I'm just kind of going all over.
You're good. So you're good. I'm tracking with you. It's happening. Nothing massive. I got you. But so in terms of, is there ways that people can help? Say I don't own a store. I don't have a Whole Foods or anything like that. I'm not volunteering. Are there other avenues that people can help you in, the work that you're doing?
I mean, definitely. It starts, simple, little small changes at your house. You eating leftovers at restaurants and trying to be more creative in the kitchen. Thinking about that, what can I do personally to affect like the greater good? It's kind of like recycling. A lot of people, it's kind of commonplace to recycle now. So it's like, maybe stop by Vindeket and see what you can get there, rescue there, support what we're doing. On your way to the store, you may not find everything that you need, but a lot of times we'll get huge loads of one certain item. Some people, we have a few like monthly donors, which is really helpful to us. To obviously cost money to do this, and we're doing, actually my guys are working right now on a small little demo project to open up our building a little more on the inside. But we're hoping to keep growing and keep serving our community, and maybe pop in other communities to do these little smaller kind of light and fast models where we're community driven and picking up no load, no amount is too small for us to pick up. But yeah, come volunteer, come shop with us. If you have time, if you have money, like it takes all of us. Everybody has something to give to this issue, personally, to corporately, to I feel like I'm kind of all over the place today, guys, to be honest with you. My head's kind of, I feel like I'm not being able to be like super concise, just to tell you that. You can cut that part out, but I'm just letting you guys know.
Yeah, we're gonna leave that in, man.
Man.
That confession is gonna stay in.
Oh.
But I tell you what, you're just fine, man. We're tracking with you.
I'm giving you guys a lot of info. I feel like my head's like, they ask one question, I'm like, you know. So
no, it's all good, man. I mean, it's necessary information. You know, the reason why we're even doing this is to give people like yourselves a platform, you know, to talk about what they're doing. And inevitably, the only way we do that is by hearing how you think about it and communicate it. So
like thinking like a crazy person.
so you know, it's all good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, what kind of challenges have you faced? Have there been any like challenges or setbacks along the way in what you're doing?
I mean, yeah, sure. It's kind of weird, you know, it's not normal. Like, you know, this guy used to dive in dumpsters and is all about, you know, I tell some people like, oh, you don't want that. There's a lot of mold in there. I was like, well, you know, like my people will pick through and you'd be surprised even like the amount of, like some people ask me like, hey, these avocados are really mushy, or all these peaches have like big pock marks cut out of them. I'm like, well, you know, put them out in a separate bin on the table at the produce counter. And you may have someone who comes through who wants to make vinegar, or who wants to make a compote or cook things down. Or so, you know, sure, we get the weird hippie vibes sometimes. But I think, you know, taking big picture, and we're pretty excited about this big, like, 1 million pound number that we just got to. You know, it's pretty crazy what has happened. And again, not to make the stores like they're not the bad guys. It's just the culture that we live in. We're used to, when you go spend your hard money and you buy an apple, you don't really want any bruises on it. You know, you pay full price. You don't. And so it is.
I mean, crazy. I'm totally guilty of that.
Well, we all are.
I really am. I'm totally guilty of this. Yeah. When I buy fruit, I want it to look perfect. I don't know why I'm like this.
It's just our society.
I like ugly fruit. I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, mister. He's like, yep, that's me. I will buy all the ugly fruit. Well, yeah. I'm like, I'd like my fruit to be perfect without any blemishes on it. Whatever.
Yeah, but what's crazy, if you've ever had like an apple tree in your backyard, you know that only 40% of that fruit is perfect. And so where did all the other stuff go? Well, they do make a lot of juice, applesauce from B grade and C grade produce and stuff like that. But it is just crazy how we've grown up, and like the reasons why we are the way we are, from post-depression era and frozen and canned food movements in the 50s and 60s. There's so many funny things that have made a normal American the way that they are and what we're used to. You know?
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, we're gonna have to come check it out.
I know. Come
on. For sure.
Come volunteer for us. Put you in the produce room. You get grubby, get some gloves on.
Darius can look at all of the ugly fruit.
I want that one. And that one.
Yeah, I love it. Sure, I mean, cut that thing off. You know, cut the weird part off of it. You know, we are human after all. We've been eating food for however many years we've been on this planet rolling around the sun. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
So in terms of, you know, the future, I mean, you're a 501c3, so it's not a typical, like, you're not a business in that sense of like, well, the future is growth and mergers and all this stuff. But what does the future hold for you? What type of new relationships are you looking at building, or, you know, new platforms integrating with, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we would love to just keep serving our greater community here in Northern Colorado. You know, we have people come from north of us, or people from Loveland or Greeley come over, get food. We're hoping to continue rescuing and servicing other stores and restaurants and purveyors in our area to just save as much as we can. You know, like I said, working with our local food bank and helping out certain things at smaller stores or gaps in places that they aren't serving, making sure that we're taking care of anybody in our community who also needs food. And maybe popping up another location south of town or in other communities as well that can benefit from kind of this small food rescue that we're trying to do. And I mean, the sky's the limit, you know. I mean, people sometimes ask, like, you know, aren't you making a business model that's gonna fail? I was like, well, I mean, it would be cool to not be doing this, to not, if the world didn't grow, it grew just enough amount of food, but that's so hard to know, you know. It's such a tricky algorithm that's constantly changing and shifting, and I think there's always going to be waste on the margins.
Sure.
We're trying to
Reduce, not eliminate.
Yeah, people always talking about, oh, zero waste 2020, zero waste 2030, zero waste 2040.
It'll never happen.
Not exact. I mean, we can do a lot better, and we are in this digital age, and there's apps coming out, and there's always something that's helping us, you know, build better infrastructure and reducing these gaps and margins. But you know, everyone's doing the best we can. It's all gravy at the end of the day. We're
Some of us. Yeah,
so some, yeah.
Okay, so then tell listeners where we can find you, show support, you potentially volunteer.
Check out our website, vindeketfoods.org. Follow us on social media channels. We're always doing fun stuff.
Is it the same handle on social media channels? Just Vindeket?
Yeah, Vindeket Foods, yeah.
Will you spell Vindeket real quick for us?
Vindeket. And yeah, come. Right now we're open Sundays and Tuesdays. Sundays from 12 to 3 and Tuesdays from 2 to 7. Hopefully we're going to be going to a third market day soon. Let us know if you have food to donate, or you know someone. You know, like I said, we get random calls all the time from hunter coalitions or ranchers or bakeries or coffee shops, or you know, we do have our bigger grocery stores that we service as well. You know, it takes all of us to do the best we can, and we're doing it. So
yeah, for sure. Well, Nathan, man, we, on behalf of Farrah and myself, we just want to thank you for taking the time with us to chat, be on the Make a Difference podcast. You are certainly making a difference in our local community. And so we just wanted to take advantage of an opportunity to celebrate that. And we're fans, we're in your corner. And so we look forward to just being in touch and connecting with you even further. But thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah,
really appreciate you guys. Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot for having me, and love what you guys are doing. So
thanks.
All right.